The massive crystal dome of Nexus Prime gleamed under the light of 3 suns. Inside the grand chamber, 12 different alien species sat around a circular table that stretched nearly 100 meters across. Each seat was designed for a different type of being. Some floated in energy fields. Others sat on crystal thrones. A few hung from the ceiling in web-like structures. Commander Hyun-Ki stood in the corner wearing his simple blue uniform. His human hands held a small recording device behind his back. Nobody paid attention to him. To the aliens in the room, he was just a primitive observer from a backwater planet called Earth. Ambassador Sora sat at a tiny desk far from the main table. Her chair was barely half the size of the alien seats. The message was clear. Humans did not matter here. They were guests who should be grateful just to watch. Dr. Jin-Ho adjusted his glasses and took notes on an old paper pad. The advanced species around him used floating holographic displays and mind-link technologies. His simple pen and paper looked like Stone Age tools in comparison. Several aliens pointed at him and made what sounded like laughing noises. The meeting began when a tall, crystalline being stood up. This was High Chancellor Vex 9 of the Vorthak Empire. His body looked like living diamond that sparkled with inner light. When he spoke, his voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. "Fellow members of the Galactic Council," Vex 9 announced. "Today we discuss the recent discovery of a new species. They call themselves humans. They come from a small planet in the outer rim called Earth. A floating ball of pure energy pulsed brighter. This was Ambassador Lumkata of the Luminary Collective. Her voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. "We have studied these creatures. They are barely beyond Stone Age development. They still use chemical rockets to leave their planet. Most of them have never even seen their own moon up close." Loud clicking sounds filled the air. The source was General Tiktor of the Chithari Hive. His insect-like body was covered in black armor. 4 arms gestured as he spoke. "These humans fight wars against their own species. They poison their own world. They cannot even unite their single planet under one government. How can such primitives deserve a voice in galactic affairs?" Hyun-Ki felt his jaw tighten but kept his face calm.
He had expected this.
Earth's governments had warned him that first contact would be difficult. The aliens had been watching humanity for decades before revealing themselves. They knew everything about human history, including all the wars and mistakes. Sora raised her hand to speak. Several aliens noticed, but most ignored her completely. She stood up anyway and spoke in a clear voice. "Honored council members, humanity requests the right to participate in galactic defense planning. We may be young, but we are eager to learn and contribute." The room fell silent for a moment. Then strange sounds began. Some aliens made whistling noises. Others clicked or buzzed. Dr. Jin-Ho realized they were laughing at Sora's request. High Chancellor Vex 9 spoke again. "Dear human ambassador, your species has existed for only a few thousand years. The youngest member of this council has existed for over 50,000 years. You have barely learned to fly between planets while we travel between galaxies. What could you possibly contribute to our defense strategies?" A new voice joined the conversation. This came from Admiral Zix Prime of the Nexorian fleet. His species looked like walking metal sculptures with glowing red eyes. The humans cannot even defend their own planet properly. They allow criminals to roam free in their cities. Their military forces use weapons that are thousands of years out of date. They would be destroyed in seconds against any real threat. Ambassador Lumkata pulsed with amused light. "Perhaps we should give them a children's role in our defense plans. They could carry messages or serve food to the real warriors." More alien laughter filled the chamber. Hyun-Ki's recording device captured every insult and dismissive comment. He knew this footage would be important someday. Dr. Jin-Ho stood up from his small corner desk. "If I may speak," he said politely, "humans have experience with asymmetric warfare. We have fought against superior technology before and found ways to win. We adapt quickly to new situations." General Tiktor's forearms waved dismissively. "Adaptation means nothing without proper technology and training. Your species uses projectile weapons that fire small metal pieces. Our shields can stop weapons that destroy entire planets. Your tactics are based on primitive thinking. We have studied human military history," added Commander Sil 9 of the Ethereal Dominion. Her ghostly form flickered as she spoke. "Humans fight with emotion instead of logic. They make decisions based on feelings rather than proper analysis. This leads to chaos and defeat." Sora tried again. We understand we have much to learn, but humanity offers something unique. We think differently than established galactic powers. Sometimes a fresh perspective can solve old problems. High Chancellor Vex 9 made a sound like crystal breaking. This was apparently his version of a sigh. Young Ambassador, the Galactic Council appreciates your enthusiasm. However, we must be realistic about your species' capabilities. He gestured to a floating holographic display that showed Earth and its surrounding space. Your planet will receive protected status under Galactic Council law. This means no hostile forces may attack your world without facing retaliation from all Council members. You should be grateful for this protection. The display changed to show a classification chart. At the top were Class 1 civilizations with the ability to manipulate time and space. At the bottom were Class 7 civilizations that had barely achieved spaceflight. Earth receives a Class 7 rating, Vex 9 announced. This is actually quite generous considering your current development level. Class 7 species are not permitted to participate in galactic military operations. You lack the technology, training, and mental discipline required for serious warfare. Admiral Zix Prime added, your people may observe council meetings as you are doing today. You may also trade with approved species under proper supervision, but military matters must be left to species with actual experience and capability. Yunki watched Sora's shoulders slump with disappointment. Months of preparation and hope had led to this moment of complete dismissal. The aliens were not just saying no to human participation, they were saying humans were too primitive to even understand why the answer was no. Dr. Jinho packed up his simple paper notes while advanced aliens shared data through direct mind links. Ambassador Sora gathered her basic presentation materials, while other species communicated through complex holographic displays. As the three humans prepared to leave, Hyunki made sure his recording device had captured everything. Something told him these aliens would regret their arrogance someday. When that day came, the galaxy would need to see exactly how they had treated humanity during first contact. The crystal dome of Nexus Prime continued to gleam under three suns, but for the first time since arriving, the light seemed cold and unwelcoming to human eyes. 6 months had passed since the humiliating meeting at Nexus Prime. Earth had accepted its protected status and Class 7 rating with quiet dignity on the surface. But underneath, something was brewing in the hearts of humanity. Captain Minsu stood on the bridge of the cargo ship Resilient Hope, looking out at the 50 vessels that made up Earth's volunteer fleet. The ships looked nothing like the sleek warships of the Galactic Council. Most were converted mining vessels with thick armor plating welded onto their hulls. Others were cargo haulers fitted with salvaged weapons from old Earth conflicts. A few were actual military ships, but they were small and outdated. Compared to alien technology, the captain was a former merchant marine who had volunteered when Earth put out a secret call for experienced ship commanders. He had gray hair and tired eyes, but his voice carried authority when he spoke to his crew. Lieutenant Yunji worked at the tactical station studying star charts and alien fleet movements. She was young for her rank, but had graduated top of her class from Seoul Military Academy. Her specialty was finding unconventional solutions to impossible problems. While alien commanders relied on thousand-year-old battle strategies, she thought outside every box. The communication system crackled to life. Reports were coming in from the Outer Rim colonies. Something new was attacking Galactic Council territories. The aliens called them Devourers because they seemed to consume everything in their path, including planets, stars, and entire solar systems. Sergeant Dongwu listened to the reports from his position in the ship's small marine compartment. He was training 20 volunteers in basic combat tactics using equipment that looked primitive compared to alien weapons. But these humans had something the aliens lacked. They were willing to fight with whatever they had instead of waiting for perfect conditions. Engineer Heiwan worked in the engine room, modifying human technology to work alongside salvaged alien components. She had figured out how to boost the power output of human fusion reactors by 30%. The modifications were dangerous and would probably explode eventually, but they gave human ships a fighting chance against superior alien vessels. The first reports about the Devourers had seemed like routine alien problems. The Galactic Council had faced threats before and always emerged victorious. Their combined technologies and millions of years of experience made them confident about handling any new enemy. Captain Minsu called his senior officers to the bridge for a private meeting. The main view screen showed news feeds from across the galaxy. Alien reporters were describing the first encounters with Devourer forces. The footage was disturbing. The Devourers were not organic creatures or traditional machines. They appeared to be something in between. Their ships looked like living metal that could reshape itself during battle. When they attacked a planet, they did not just destroy it. They absorbed all the material and energy to make themselves stronger. Lieutenant Yunji pointed to the tactical display. The alien fleets are responding with standard battle formations. They are treating this like any other invasion force, but look at how the Devourers adapt to each attack. The view screen showed a battle between Vorthak crystal ships and Devourer vessels. The crystal beings fired their most powerful energy weapons. The Devourer ships absorbed the energy and immediately began firing identical weapons back at their attackers. Within minutes, the entire Vorthak fleet was destroyed. Engineer Haywan studied the footage with growing concern. These things learn from every encounter. Each battle makes them smarter and stronger. The aliens do not realize what they are fighting. Sergeant Dongwu had been listening quietly from the back of the room. The Galactic Council will ask for help soon. They always do when things get bad. But they will want us to be cannon fodder while they figure out a real solution. Captain Minsu nodded grimly. Earth received a preliminary message yesterday. The Council is considering allowing Class 7 species to participate in rearguard actions. That means they want us to die while they retreat to safety. The communication system activated again. This time the signal came directly from Earth Command. Admiral Sung Ho appeared on the screen looking exhausted. Behind him, the flags of every Earth nation hung side by side in the unified command center. All volunteer fleet commanders, the Admiral began. The situation in the Outer Rim is deteriorating rapidly. 3 Galactic Council fleets have been completely destroyed. The Devourers are advancing toward core worlds with billions of innocent civilians. He paused and looked directly into the camera. The Council has officially requested Earth's participation in defensive operations. They are offering us support roles in exchange for our protected status. Command is accepting their offer. Lieutenant Yunji felt her stomach twist. Support roles meant suicide missions. The aliens would put human ships in the most dangerous positions while keeping their own forces safe. It was exactly what everyone had expected. Admiral Sung Ho continued his message. I know what you are all thinking. The aliens dismissed us 6 months ago. They called us primitives who could never contribute to galactic defense. Now they want our help because their superior technology is failing. The Admiral's voice grew stronger. But we are not doing this for them. We are doing this because millions of innocent beings will die if the Devourers are not stopped. That includes humans on Earth if these creatures continue expanding. Captain Minsu looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They were scared but determined. These volunteers had signed up knowing they might never return home. They came from every nation on Earth united by a simple belief that someone had to stand up when darkness threatened the light. Engineer Haywan raised her hand. Captain, I have been monitoring alien communications about the Devourers. Their adaptation ability seems to have a pattern. They learn from logical tactical approaches, but they struggle with random or chaotic strategies. Sergeant Dongwu leaned forward with interest. You mean they cannot adapt to tactics that do not make sense? Exactly, Haywan replied. Alien species think in very structured ways. Their battle plans follow mathematical models and established procedures. The Devourers can predict and counter this type of thinking. But humans do not always think logically. Lieutenant Yunji began pulling up tactical scenarios on her display. If we could develop completely unpredictable attack patterns, we might be able to confuse their adaptation systems. The key would be making decisions that seem insane to any logical observer. Captain Minsu studied the data his officers were presenting. A crazy plan was forming in his mind. The aliens expected humans to follow orders and die heroically in support roles. But what if humanity had its own ideas about how to fight this war? He activated the fleet communication system connecting to all 50 volunteer ships. All commanders, this is Captain Minsu. In 12 hours, we will receive official deployment orders from the Galactic Council. Those orders will probably be designed to get us killed while accomplishing very little. The captain paused and looked out at his ragtag fleet of converted civilian ships. But we did not come here to follow alien orders. We came here to save lives and stop an enemy that threatens everything we care about. Sometimes that means doing things our own way. The communication channel filled with voices as ship commanders responded with agreement. These humans had nothing to lose and everything to fight for. The Galactic Council was about to learn that dismissing humanity had been their first mistake. The Devourers were advancing toward core worlds. Alien fleets were failing despite their superior technology, and in the darkness between stars, 50 human ships prepared to show the galaxy what primitive thinking could accomplish. The Vorthak Crystal Fleet had been the pride of the Galactic Council for over 10,000 years. Their ships could slice through space itself, and their weapons turned matter into pure energy. High Chancellor Vex 9 led the first major strike against the Devourer. Advance with complete confidence in victory. The battle lasted exactly 47 minutes, Captain. Minsu watched the aftermath from the bridge of resilient hope hidden in the shadow of a massive asteroid. His human fleet had followed the Galactic Council forces at a safe distance, despite orders to stay behind. What they witnessed changed everything they thought they knew about this war. The Devourer ships had started the battle looking like simple metal spheres. But as the crystal beings attacked, the enemy vessels began to change. They absorbed the energy weapons and reformed themselves into perfect copies of Vorthak technology. Within minutes, the Devourers were firing crystal cutting beams that were even more powerful than the originals. Lieutenant Yunji recorded every second of the destruction on her tactical display. "The adaptation rate is incredible," she whispered. "They do not just copy the weapons. They improve them during the battle." Navigator Boram sat at her station mapping the debris field that had once been 50 proud crystal ships. "I am detecting 17 escape pods scattered across the area. The survivors are broadcasting distress signals, but no council ships are responding." Captain Minsu made a decision that would have seemed impossible to any logical military commander. "All ships prepare for rescue operations. We are going into that debris field to pick up survivors." Engineer Haywan looked up from her console with concern. "Captain, the Devourers are still in the area. If they detect us, we will share the same fate as the Crystal Fleet." Sergeant Dongwu was already suiting up his Marines for boarding operations. "Then we better move fast and stay quiet. Those aliens may have dismissed us, but we do not abandon people who need help." The human fleet spread out across the debris field, using their smaller size and basic technology to avoid Devourer sensors. The enemy ship seemed focused on consuming the remains of the crystal vessels and paid little attention to the tiny human craft moving through the wreckage. Medic Yejin prepared the medical bay aboard. Resilient hope for alien patients. She had studied Vorthak physiology during the long journey from Earth, but had never actually treated a crystal being before. Her equipment was primitive compared to alien medical technology, but her training was thorough. The first rescue ship returned with 3 Vorthak survivors who were badly damaged, but alive. The crystal beings were transparent, and their inner light was dim with injury and shock. They had never seen humans up close before and seemed confused about why primitives would risk their lives to save them. Communications. Officer Taeyang worked frantically to decode alien distress frequencies while coordinating the rescue operations. He had learned 17 different galactic languages during the journey, and was now putting all that knowledge to practical use. One of the rescued Vorthak spoke in broken human language. "Why do you help us? Your council rating says you are Class 7 primitives. This rescue violates your protected status agreement." Dr. Jin Ho had transferred to the rescue fleet to study Devourer technology firsthand. He looked up from his examination of crystal fragments and gave the alien a simple answer. "Because you needed help and we were here to give it." The Vorthak being flickered with confusion. "But we dismissed your species. We said you had nothing to contribute to galactic affairs. Logic says you should leave us to die as punishment for our disrespect." Medic Yejin finished treating the alien's damaged crystal matrix and helped him sit up on the medical table. "Humans do not always follow logic. We help people because it feels right, not because it makes strategic sense." Over the next 6 hours, human ships rescued 43 alien survivors from the destroyed fleet. They pulled beings from burning wreckage, provided medical treatment, and shared their limited food supplies with creatures who had called them primitive savages just months earlier. The rescued aliens came from different species within the Vorthak Empire. Some were crystalline like their leaders, while others were energy beings or mechanical constructs. All of them had the same reaction to human kindness. They could not understand why a dismissed species would show such compassion. Captain Minsu gathered the senior alien survivors for a briefing about what they had learned from the battle. The Vorthak military commander was a being called Sub-Chancellor Cry 8. whose crystal body showed fresh repair work from human medical treatment. The Devourers are unlike any enemy we have encountered, Cry 8 explained. They learn and adapt during combat. Every weapon we used against them became a weapon they could use against us with greater efficiency. Lieutenant Yunji studied the battle recordings from multiple angles. They seemed to follow a learning algorithm similar to machine intelligence but with biological adaptability. It is like fighting an enemy that becomes smarter and stronger with every exchange. Engineer Heiwan had been examining fragments of Devourer technology recovered from the debris field. The material is neither fully organic nor completely mechanical. It responds to different stimuli in ways that should be impossible according to known physics. Dr. Jinho looked up from his analysis of the enemy remains. I think they might be some kind of hybrid intelligence. Part artificial, part biological, part something else entirely. That would explain their rapid adaptation abilities. Navigator Boram had been tracking Devourer movement patterns since the battle ended. They are not random in their attacks. There is a definite strategic purpose behind their advance toward core worlds. They are heading for something specific. Communications Officer Tae Yang intercepted a Council emergency broadcast. The Luminary Energy Collective just engaged another Devourer force near the Spiral Nebula. Early reports suggest the same pattern: total adaptation and complete fleet destruction within the first hour. Sub-Chancellor Cry 8 made a sound like breaking glass, which meant deep concern in Vorthak language. If the Luminari fail as badly as we did, the Council will panic. They will start throwing every available ship at the enemy without proper planning. Sergeant Dongwu had been listening to the alien discussions while preparing defensive positions aboard the human ships. Mass attacks without coordination will just make the Devourers stronger. Each battle teaches them how to fight more species. Captain Minsu realized the terrible truth about this war. The Galactic Council's greatest strength was also their greatest weakness. Their vast experience and advanced technology made them predictable. The Devourers could study their tactics and turn their own weapons against them. We need to warn the Council, he decided. They are walking into a trap with every conventional attack they launch. Sub-Chancellor Cry 8 flickered with doubt. They will not listen to warnings from Class 7 primitives. Even with our testimony, they will assume human analysis is too simple to understand the complexity of galactic warfare. Lieutenant Yunji looked at the tactical displays showing Devourer positions across multiple star systems. Then we need to prove our worth in a way they cannot ignore. We need to engage the enemy ourselves and show them there is another way to fight this war. The rescued alien stared at the young human officer with amazement. She was suggesting that 50 primitive ships should do what the most advanced fleet in the galaxy had failed to accomplish. It sounded like madness. But as the humans continued their rescue operations and shared their resources freely with former enemies, the aliens began to wonder if human madness might be exactly what this war needed. The logical approach had failed completely. Perhaps it was time to try something illogical. In the darkness between stars, Devourer ships continued their advance toward the galactic core. They had learned much from destroying the Crystal Fleet, but they had not yet encountered the chaotic unpredictability of human determination. The emergency session of the Galactic Council took place in a heavily shielded bunker deep beneath Nexus Prime. The beautiful crystal dome had been abandoned after intelligence reports suggested the Devourers could track and target major population centers. Fear had replaced arrogance in the voices of species who had ruled the galaxy for millennia. High Chancellor Vex 9 stood before the assembled representatives with his crystal body dim and cracked from stress. 3 major alien fleets had been completely destroyed in the past week. The Chithari hive mind had lost contact with entire colony worlds. The Luminary Energy Collective was retreating to their core systems after losing half their mobile. Forces. Admiral Sung Ho received the official transmission from Earth Command while reviewing intelligence reports in his cramped quarters aboard the human flagship. The message was brief and direct. The Galactic Council was formally requesting human participation in defensive operations against the Devourer threat. Dr. Mi Young worked in her small laboratory, studying tissue samples recovered from Devourer ships. The enemy material was unlike anything in known scientific databases. It seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously, being part organic tissue, part quantum machinery, and part something that defied classification entirely. The terms of human participation were exactly what Captain Minsu had predicted months earlier. Earth forces would be assigned to forward screening positions while alien fleets maintained strategic reserves. Human ships would probe enemy defenses and gather intelligence while more valuable vessels stayed safely behind the lines. Colonel Jae-won reviewed the deployment orders with growing anger. His Special Forces unit was being assigned to board damaged Devourer vessels to plant tracking devices. The mission had a projected survival rate of less than 10%. The aliens were asking humans to commit suicide for information that might help preserve alien lives. Tech specialist Kyung-min had been developing countermeasures against Devourer adaptation abilities using salvaged alien technology, combined with human engineering techniques. His work was crude compared to advanced galactic science, but it had one crucial advantage. It was completely unpredictable and made no logical sense to outside observers. Captain Min-soo called his senior staff together for a final briefing before accepting the official deployment orders. The main display showed tactical projections of the coming battle near the garden world of Serenity. Over 6 billion innocent civilians lived on that peaceful planet, including many species that had never developed spaceflight technology. The Council wants us to act as bait, Lieutenant Yoonji reported while studying the battle plans. Human ships will advance toward Devourer positions to draw their attention. When the enemy engages us, the main alien fleets will attack from flanking positions. Engineer Hae-won shook her head in disgust. They still think this is a conventional war where superior numbers and technology guarantee victory. They have not learned anything from the previous defeats. Navigator Bo-ram had been tracking Devourer movements for weeks and noticed disturbing patterns. The enemy is not just randomly consuming everything in their path. They are specifically targeting worlds with diverse populations and advanced technology. It is like they want to learn about as many different species as possible. Sergeant Dongwoo had been training his Marines for boarding actions against enemy vessels. But the more he learned about Devourer capabilities, the more hopeless the mission seemed. These things adapt to everything we throw at them. Conventional weapons, energy beams, even nuclear explosives just make them stronger. Dr. Mi-young entered the briefing room carrying her latest research findings. Her analysis of Devourer tissue samples had revealed something important that the alien scientists had missed completely. I found something interesting about their adaptation process, she announced. The xenobiologist activated a holographic display showing cellular structures that seemed to shift and change as they watched. The Devourers use a form of quantum learning that allows them to process multiple tactical scenarios simultaneously. They can predict and counter any logical strategic approach. Communications Officer Tae Yang looked up from his station where he had been monitoring alien fleet communications. The Council forces are planning exactly the kind of coordinated attack that the Devourers will be expecting. Mass formations, overwhelming firepower, and systematic tactical progression. Dr. Mi-young continued her explanation while the display showed complex adaptation algorithms. But here is the crucial discovery. Their quantum learning system has a fatal weakness. It cannot process truly random or chaotic inputs. When faced with completely illogical behavior, their adaptation protocols actually slow down instead of speeding up. Captain Min-soo studied the research data with growing excitement. You mean they cannot adapt to tactics that make no sense? Exactly, Dr. Mi-young replied. Their machine learning requires patterns to analyze and predict. But human creativity and intuition can produce actions that have no logical pattern at all. Random decisions, emotional responses, and desperate improvisation are things they struggle to understand, tech specialist. Kyung-min had been working on modified weapons, systems that combined human and alien technology in ways that violated every known engineering principle. I have been developing completely unpredictable weapon configurations, plasma cannons powered by chemical explosives, kinetic projectiles that change direction randomly, energy shields that turn on and off without any tactical reason. Colonel Jae-won realized the implications of this discovery. If we can confuse their adaptation systems with chaotic tactics, we might be able to hurt them before they learn how to counter our attacks. Lieutenant Yoonji began pulling up tactical scenarios that no proper military academy would ever teach. Ramming attacks, suicidal charges, weapons fire in random directions, ships that retreat and advance without any apparent strategy. To the Devourers, it would look like complete madness. Engineer Hae-won smiled for the first time in weeks. And madness is something humans excel at when the situation is desperate enough. Admiral Sung Ho transmitted new orders to the volunteer fleet, giving them complete tactical freedom to engage the enemy however they thought best. The official deployment orders from the Galactic Council could be followed or ignored as circumstances required. Earth's priority was stopping the Devourer advance regardless of alien approval. Captain Minsu addressed his crew over the ship's communication system. In 6 hours we will reach the Serenity system where 6 billion people are counting on the galaxy to protect them. The aliens have given us orders to die heroically while they try to win with tactics that have already failed 3 times. He paused and looked out at the volunteer fleet that had grown to 60 ships as more human vessels arrived from Earth. But we did not come here to follow orders or die heroically. We came here to save lives and stop an enemy that threatens everything we care about. Sometimes that means being willing to look completely insane to outside observers. Medic Yejin prepared her medical bay for what was certain to be heavy casualties. The upcoming battle would test every human ship and crew beyond their limits. But for the first time since the war began, humanity had something the aliens lacked. They had a strategy that the Devourers could not predict or counter. The garden world of Serenity continued its peaceful rotation around a yellow star very similar to Earth's sun. Its population had no idea that their survival now depended on 50 primitive ships, crewed by beings that the Galactic Council had dismissed as barely evolved savages. In the cold vacuum between planets, Devourer forces prepared for another conventional battle against predictable alien tactics. They had learned much from previous encounters and felt confident about adapting to whatever new strategies the Council might attempt, but they had never encountered the beautiful chaos of human desperation, guided by hope and fueled by the simple refusal to give up when others needed protection. The garden world of Serenity hung in space like a blue and green jewel surrounded by 3 small moons. 6 billion beings from dozens of different species lived on its surface in peaceful harmony. They had no weapons, no armies, and no way to defend themselves against what was coming through the darkness between stars. Admiral Zix Prime commanded the last major Galactic Council fleet from his flagship, Eternal Victory. 200 alien warships formed perfect geometric formations in space following battle plans that had worked for thousands of years. Each vessel represented the most advanced technology their species could produce. Their combined firepower could destroy entire solar systems. Wing Commander Subin sat in the cockpit of her modified fighter craft, watching the alien formations through her simple optical display. The human fighter squadrons looked like toys compared to the massive alien vessels. Her ship was built from salvaged parts and held, together with determination and hope, rather than advanced engineering. The Devourer fleet emerged from hyperspace exactly where Lieutenant Yunji had predicted they would appear. 50 black spheres materialized near Serenity's largest moon and immediately began scanning the defensive formations. Within seconds, they started adapting their shapes to match the alien ship configurations they detected. Captain Minsu gave the order that would change galactic history forever. All human ships break formation and attack. Remember, we are not trying to win this battle. We are trying to confuse the enemy long enough for everyone else to figure out how to fight them. Corporal Inho led his Marine squad toward the shuttle bay as alarms blared throughout the ship. Their mission was to board damaged Devourer vessels and plant explosive charges in random locations. It was a suicide mission disguised as a tactical operation, but nobody complained about the orders. The first phase of the battle followed exactly the pattern that had destroyed 3 previous alien fleets. The Devourers absorbed energy weapon attacks and immediately began firing improved versions back at their attackers. Plasma beams became superheated death rays. Particle cannons turned into planet-killing weapons. Every alien advantage became a Devourer's strength within minutes. Commander Yujin watched from the bridge of her converted cargo hauler as the alien battle lines started to collapse under their own superior technology turned against them. The mathematical precision of Council formations became a liability when the enemy could predict every movement and counter every strategy. Then the human fleet did something that no military academy in the galaxy would ever teach. They attacked in completely random directions with no coordination or apparent strategy. Wing Commander Subin led her fighters in a spiraling dance that looked more like drunken celebration than aerial combat. Private Jiwoo recorded everything on his personal camera as his transport ship rammed directly into a Devourer vessel at full speed. The collision made no tactical sense and accomplished nothing except creating a spectacular explosion that damaged both ships. But for the first time in the war, a Devourer ship seemed confused about how to respond. Tech specialist Kyung Min activated his impossible weapon systems as human ships closed with the enemy. Chemical explosives fired plasma bursts in random directions. Kinetic weapons changed course mid-flight for no logical reason. Energy shields flickered on and off, creating light shows instead of protection. The Devourers tried to adapt to human tactics but found themselves facing something their quantum learning systems could not process. How do you counter a ramming attack when the attacking ship randomly reverses course halfway through the charge? How do you predict weapons fire that changes direction based on the emotional state of the gunner? Medic Ye Jin worked frantically in her medical bay as casualties poured in from the chaotic battle. Human ships were being destroyed at an alarming rate, but they were taking Devourer vessels down with them. More importantly, they were buying time for the alien fleets to reorganize and adapt their own tactics. Admiral Zix Prime watched the human assault with amazement and horror. The primitive ships were dying in large numbers, but their sacrifice was creating opportunities that proper military strategy could never achieve. Devourer adaptation protocols were slowing down as they struggled to analyze human behavior patterns. Captain Min Su's flagship took a direct hit from a Devourer energy weapon that should have vaporized the entire ship. But the primitive human shields had been modified with random fluctuation patterns that confused the enemy targeting systems. Instead of total destruction, the ship lost only its forward sections and kept fighting. Engineer Haiwan rerouted power through damaged systems using repair techniques that violated every safety protocol ever written. Fusion reactors operated at dangerous overload levels. Life support systems shared power with weapons arrays. The ship held together through pure stubbornness and creative engineering. Colonel Jae-won led the first successful boarding action against a Devourer vessel when his Marines used mining explosives and construction tools as weapons. The enemy had adapted to military-grade firearms and energy weapons but had no defense against a plasma cutter, wielded by an angry construction worker turned soldier. The tide of battle began to shift when Wing Commander Subin accidentally discovered that Devourer ships could not adapt to aircraft that flew in patterns based on ancient human folk songs. Her squadron started flying combat maneuvers choreographed to classical music from Earth. The enemy ships spun in confused circles trying to predict movements based on artistic expression rather than tactical necessity. Navigator Boram guided human ships through three-dimensional space using navigation techniques that combined advanced stellar cartography with pure intuition. When logical routes became too predictable, she had ships follow paths that felt right rather than paths that made mathematical sense. The alien fleets watched in amazement as human chaos began to crack the Devourer adaptation systems. Council ships started copying human tactics even though they made no strategic sense. Vorthak crystal vessels began firing weapons in random directions. Luminary energy beings started pulsing in irregular patterns that confused enemy sensors. Commander Yu Jin made the decision that would be remembered throughout galactic history. Her damaged cargo hauler was losing life support and had no weapons left functional. Instead of retreating to safety, she ordered maximum acceleration directly toward the largest Devourer command ship. The collision between a primitive human cargo vessel and an advanced enemy warship created an explosion visible from the surface of Serenity. Both ships were completely destroyed, but the sacrifice gave human fighters the opening they needed to penetrate Devourer defensive formations. Private Jiwoo kept recording even as his own ship broke apart around him. The footage showed human crew members singing ancient Earth songs as they flew their damaged vessels into enemy formations. They faced certain death with courage and humor that no alien species had ever witnessed before. As the battle raged around Serenity, something unprecedented happened. The Devourers began to retreat. Their adaptation systems had been overwhelmed by the sheer chaos of human desperation. For the first time since the war began, the unstoppable enemy was running away from a fight, but victory came at a terrible price. 47 of the 60 human ships had been destroyed. Thousands of volunteers who had left Earth to help strangers would never see their homeworld again. The garden world of Serenity was saved, but the cost in human lives was staggering. Wing Commander Subin limped her damaged fighter back toward the surviving human vessels as Devourer ships disappeared into hyperspace. Around her, the wreckage of both fleets drifted through space like a monument to the day that primitive chaos defeated advanced logic through courage alone. 3 days after the Battle of Serenity, journalist Hyo Jin sat in her small apartment on Earth reviewing terabytes of battle footage that had been transmitted from the front lines. Her hand shook as she watched human ships sacrifice themselves to save alien worlds while those same aliens had dismissed humanity as worthless primitives just months earlier. The data packet that would change galactic history began as a simple memorial project. Hyojin wanted to honor the human volunteers who had died far from home, fighting for people who had never respected them. She started collecting helmet camera footage, ship recordings, and personal messages from the survivors. Veteran Wu Sung had been aboard one of the 13 human ships that survived the battle. His left arm was gone and his face bore scars from plasma burns, but his memory was crystal clear. He sat across from Hyojin in the small recording studio describing what he had witnessed. The aliens treated us like we were children playing with dangerous toys, Wu Sung explained while looking at footage of the pre-battle briefings. They gave us orders designed to get us killed while keeping their own ships safe. But Captain Minsu had other ideas about how this war should be. Council member Quan Ho had finally been granted a seat at the Galactic Council after the Battle of Serenity, but his voice still carried little weight among species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. He provided Hyojin with official recordings of alien command communications during the battle. The footage showed alien commanders laughing at human battle plans just hours before those same plans saved their fleets from total destruction. High Chancellor Vex 9 could be heard calling human tactics primitive suicide runs that will accomplish nothing except providing entertainment. Historian So Young worked alongside Hyojin to create a comprehensive record of human contributions to the war effort. The official alien histories barely mentioned human participation, and when they did, it was described as minor support operations rather than the decisive actions that had turned the tide of battle. The most damaging evidence came from Private Jiwoo's personal camera recordings. The young soldier had kept filming even as his ship broke apart around him. His footage showed human crew members sharing their last rations with rescued alien survivors who had previously called them savages. Admiral Zix Prime appeared in several recordings expressing amazement that primitive mammals were willing to die for beings who had treated them with contempt. His tactical reports clearly stated that human sacrifice had been the key factor in the first Devourer defeat, but those sections were being removed from official battle summaries. The breakthrough moment came when Hyojin discovered archived footage from Commander Hyun-Ki's hidden recording devices. The human liaison officer had been documenting alien dismissal and prejudice since the first contact meeting 6 months earlier. His evidence showed exactly how the Galactic Council had treated humanity before the war began. Wing Commander Subin provided audio recordings from her fighter squadron during the battle. Her pilots could be heard singing traditional Korean folk songs as they flew impossible maneuvers that confused Devourer adaptation systems. The same aliens who had mocked human culture were now trying to copy those songs for their own tactical advantages. Engineer Haewon contributed technical specifications showing how human modifications had improved alien technology beyond what their original designers thought possible. Simple human creativity had solved engineering problems that had puzzled advanced species for centuries. The data compilation took 2 weeks to complete. When finished, it contained over 300 hours of video evidence, thousands of audio recordings, and detailed technical analyses of every major battle engagement. The package told the complete story of human contribution to galactic defense. Communications Officer Taeyang helped distribute the data packet through underground networks that bypassed official alien censorship systems. Within hours, copies were spreading across every inhabited world in the galaxy. Alien citizens were seeing the truth for the first time. The recording showed human medics treating wounded aliens with the same care they gave their own people. Alien survivors testified that humans had shared food, water, and medical supplies freely even when their own supplies were running dangerously low. Dr. Mi Young's research data proved that human scientific discoveries had provided the key insights needed to understand Devourer weaknesses. Her work had been ignored by alien scientists until human tactics proved her theories correct on the battlefield. The most powerful footage came from the moment when Captain Minsu's ship was breaking apart, but his crew continued rescuing alien survivors from nearby wreckage. The humans worked together to save beings who belonged to species that had voted to exclude Earth from galactic affairs. Medic Ye Jin appeared in dozens of recordings treating alien patients with primitive but effective human medical techniques. Her commentary revealed that she had studied alien physiology for months, just in case humans were allowed to help with medical support operations. The alien response to the documentary, evidence was immediate and overwhelming. Vorthak citizens demanded explanations from their government about why humans had been dismissed. Luminary energy beings began publicly apologizing for their species' arrogance. Chaithari hive minds acknowledged that human individuality was a strength rather than a weakness. Sub-Chancellor Cryate released his own statement describing how human rescuers had saved his life, while his own fleet abandoned him to die. The crystal being publicly thanked humanity for showing compassion to enemies, who had shown them only contempt. The most damaging revelation came from recordings of alien command meetings during the battle. High Chancellor Vex 9 could be heard ordering human ships into positions where they would absorb enemy fire, while alien vessels retreated to safety. The recordings proved that alien leaders had deliberately used humans as expendable shields. Admiral Sung Ho provided Earth's official response to the galactic controversy. Humanity did not fight for recognition or gratitude. We fought because innocent people needed protection, and we had the ability to help them. That is what humans do when faced with darkness threatening the light. The documentary spread to every corner of galactic civilization within a week.
Alien citizens who had never heard of humans before the war were now
demanding that their governments explain why such brave and compassionate beings had been treated as primitive. Savage's navigator Boram contributed navigation logs showing how human ships had repeatedly exposed themselves to enemy fire while guiding alien survivors to safety. Her evidence proved that human casualties were high, precisely because they had prioritized alien lives over their own. Survival Sergeant Dong Wu provided combat recordings from ground operations where human Marines had used their own bodies to shield alien civilians from devourer attacks. The footage showed humans dying to protect beings they had never met from species that had voted against human participation in galactic affairs. The galactic media response was unprecedented. News networks that had ignored human existence for months were now broadcasting continuous coverage of human heroism during the war. Public opinion across dozens of worlds shifted dramatically in favor of giving humanity full recognition and respect. Tech specialist Kyung-min released detailed plans for his impossible weapon modifications that had confused devourer adaptation systems. His willingness to share human innovations freely contrasted sharply with alien species that guarded their technological advantages. Jealously, Council member Kwan Ho announced that formal hearings would be held to investigate alien treatment of humanity during the crisis. The evidence was so overwhelming that even species that had opposed human inclusion were now calling for immediate policy changes. The recordings had accomplished what months of diplomatic efforts could not achieve. The galaxy could no longer ignore or dismiss human contributions to their survival. The truth was now visible to every being with access to communication networks, and that truth demanded justice for the species that had saved them all.